Chapter 331. Olivia lazed around on the island for a few days. She did nothing but sleep and eat the whole time. The quality of her life improved immensely. She walked around the beach barefooted while carrying a bucket in hand. She would grab any sand crabs she saw with tongs. Snowball wanted to help her, but the sand was too hot for her, so she moved away. Olivia went to the livestock area after she had caught quite a few sand crabs. She poured the sand crabs out, which caused the farm animals to chase after them. Her mood improved as she looked at the lively animals. Then, she went back to her room to shower in preparation for dinner. She happened to get a call from Colin. "Olivia, how have you been?" "I've been pretty well. I've been eating, drinking, and sleeping well. I don't have to worry about getting kidnapped either." "That's great. I just wanted to inform you that your father has arrived at the destination safely. The doctors on the island have just examined him. His body is the same as usual." Colin's words alleviated Olivia's worries. She quickly asked, "Colin, have you finalized the arrangements with Leo?" "Yes. He'll arrive on the island soon. But Mr. Fordham needs to undergo some preparations before the surgery. It'll be about 2 weeks before he can go through with it." Olivia's mood improved with the positive responses. "This is a very risky operation. I'd like to be by my father's side for it." At the moment, uncovering the truth wasn't the most important thing in Olivia's mind. She was just concerned that there wouldn't be anyone by Jeff's side during the operation. "Olivia, I tried to have someone trace your location through your signal. It didn't work. The source of your signal has been deliberately concealed. I can't pinpoint your location. It's no use. I'm on an uncharted island. Don't worry, Olivia, I'll go take care of Mr. Fordham personally in a few days. I'll do my best to keep him so." "Thanks, Colin. Don't be a stranger to me, Olivia. I've been feeling guilty for failing to bring you away. Don't be afraid. I'll not let him catch you next time." Colin continued gently, "You must take good care of yourself, Olivia. Remember to take the pills I gave you on time. As long as you don't give up hope, the sun will always rise again." Olivia looked at the setting sun after she hung up. Colin's words encouraged her, helping her refocus on her mental well-being that she had once cast aside. She started to believe that things would be better. She still wanted to be by her father's side the most. After she had dinner, she called Ethan. They hadn't spoken to each other since he left. If the staff weren't caring for her every need, she would start to think she had been abandoned on this deserted island. The call went through. Ethan's deep voice sounded from the other end. "Hello." In the past, Olivia's heart would skip a beat whenever she heard his voice. But now, there was only calm. Olivia asked, "How long do you plan to keep me prisoner?" Ethan frowned at her choice of words. "Aren't you having fun on the island?" He had designed the island according to her preferences. He was sure no matter how picky she was, he wouldn't be delayed and find a problem with it. Olivia replied honestly, "The island is great. I even have the urge to stay here for the rest of my life, but I want to go back for a bit. I'm worried about my father." She pleaded softly, "Ethan, please let me go back for a while, okay?" Ethan rubbed his forehead in exasperation. He couldn't refuse her request. "I'll send someone to pick you up in a few days." Chapter 332. After he hung up, Ethan looked at all the new leads before him. In the time Olivia was out of town, he had gotten to investigating the whereabouts of Toxic Hive and about the past. He found the hometown of Paul Cruz and Clara Foster. According to what his people found out, the child had been gone for some days. From the pictures provided by the villagers, the child looked a lot like Belle and had some of Paul's features. Paul and Clara had also disappeared from Aldenvine. Even though he couldn't bring the child back, their existence was proof enough. Someone had pinned the blame on Jeff. The claims about Belle having his baby and Jeff forcing her away, which caused her to suffer from mental illness before she ultimately committed suicide, didn't hold up to scrutiny. Someone had plotted everything, even before Jeff's traffic accident. But it didn't seem like the person wanted to harm him. Their main objective was to destroy his relationship with Olivia. The person went to great lengths to get him to divorce Olivia. They spent countless time and energy over a few years to set everything up. Now that most of the truth was revealed, one thing remained a mystery. What did the person stand to gain from his divorce? If it was to take Olivia's place, no young women had approached him in the 2 years he was divorced. Ethan also didn't understand the connection between Leia's death and Jeff. After he went through all his leads, he looked at Brent and asked, "Did that Moriarty kid take any action?" No, his routine has been very simple. He spends most of his time at the office and goes home afterward. Besides the occasional social engagement, he hasn't been anywhere special. What about people he socialized with? We've people keeping an eye on those people as well. We haven't noticed anything off about them. But our tapping devices are running out of power soon. Mr. Miller, we've spent the entire week keeping an eye on the kid. We haven't found anything suspicious. Could we be wrong about him? Maybe his motive was just to help Mrs. Miller escape. Ethan rested his head on his hands and said with a severe expression, "No. The most suspicious thing about is that we can't find anything wrong with him." Ethan felt like Colin seemed too calm. He wasn't even 20 years old, but he didn't even show the slightest bit of fear when he was about to be thrown overboard. He might have already known it wouldn't happen. Ethan recalled Olivia's actions that night. Colin had stood farther from Olivia than him, but they grabbed Olivia almost simultaneously. That meant he had known what Olivia was about to do. Ethan smiled bitterly. He didn't expect Olivia to pull a stunt like that just to get him to let Colin off the hook. But there was nothing Ethan could do even if he knew. Colin was cunning. Ethan had already witnessed that firsthand. If my guess is correct, he must have known we would monitor him. Brent was stunned momentarily. So that means he has been putting on a show for us. Damn, this kid is so cunning. No wonder he would always go the longer route. Sometimes, he'd buy a slice of cake. Other times, he'd buy pastries. So he's been playing us all along. Ethan said with a grunt, he'll reveal his true colors eventually. He'll keep scheming as long as Liv doesn't show up. We have the initiative. Mr. Miller, you mean? Liv wants to come back. I need to clear out all the threats before she does. Brent frowned. But we haven't found Toxic Hive's lair. If we can't trap them in their lair, why don't we lure them out? They had always been put in a passive position and manipulated at every turn. What will we use as bait? Ethan stood up. His coat slipped off his shoulders as he moved. His tall figure blocked the light above, casting a shadow over his desk. His face was shrouded in the shadows. Only the silhouette of his face was visible. He was like the devil in the dark. He said slowly, "Me." Meanwhile, at the Moriarty residence, Colin was toying with a tapping device on his palm. He smirked as its power ran out. He then threw it on the floor and stomped on it. The device was instantly crushed, and Colin disappeared into the darkness. Chapter 333. There was a hidden tunnel under the cherry blossom tree in the garden of the Moriarty residence. Colin jumped into it. At a certain underground base outside of the city, Colin was seen in a black outfit and a mask. Scanning his fingerprint, he entered the base. He walked down a long dimly lit flight of stairs where the air smelled like mold and rotten corpses. He walked through a door, and the scenery behind it was completely different. There were advanced mechanical devices glowing with blue lights and robots everywhere. His identity was being verified at the door. A robotic voice said, "Verified. Welcome home, Leo." Colin quickly walked forward, but someone pressed something against his head. A woman asked, "Where did you take the old man?" The gentleness he usually showed for Olivia was gone. He swung his elbow hard toward his back with a sullen face. The woman dodged instinctively. He used the opening to grab the woman and got behind her. With one hand, he grabbed her arm and pressed his other hand against the back of her head toward the wall. The vixen mask on the woman's face made a sharp sound as it rubbed against the wall. He was very rough with her. "Didn't I tell you that you can do whatever you want as long as you keep your hands off her?" The woman smirked. "Why are you so subservient when it comes to her? I'm curious what kind of magic she has to be able to mesmerize every one of you. That has nothing to do with you. Stop interfering with the Fordhams. Or else." Colin lowered his voice and continued, "Don't blame me if I lay my hands on him. You can certainly try. Do you think he's useless like Olivia?" The woman didn't care about his threat. I heard you were met with a setback this time. The woman's merciless mockery rang in his ears, striking Colin's nerve. He applied even more pressure as a result. Did you already know his identity and not report it? What about you? You also took Jeff away behind my back. You're just as bad as me, so zip it. A voice came from behind Colin. I see you're both aware you're as bad as each other. Now let her go. Colin released the woman in frustration before looking at the person behind him. The person was still the same as she was 10 years ago. She wore a huge hat and a cape that covered her from top to toe. She also wore a demon mask. A pale hand reached out from within the black cape. Her fingernails were covered in crimson nail polish. In her hand was a test tube with some liquid in it. Here's a new mission. Colin could feel her gaze fall on him. He bowed slightly and said softly, "What's the mission?" "Come with me." Colin and the woman in the vixen mask looked at each other before following the woman. They set aside their grudge momentarily. Their faces became serious under their respective masks. They went to a lab marked with the letter Z. The lab was dimly lit, and there was only light coming from the screens in the room. The woman in the demon mask stood before Colin. "This is the newly developed drug, M1. So this is the drug that'll cause memory loss upon ingesting. Isn't this drug being developed by a team overseas? The research for the drug began 10 years ago. It was finally completed after so long." Colin was a little excited. Usually, to cause memory loss, the brain would need to experience blunt force trauma or mental breakdowns. There hadn't been a drug that could cause memory loss without causing damage to the brain before this. The drug was destined to become one of the greatest creations of the century. There were still severe side effects discovered from the clinical trials. It still needs to be refined. I need both of you to work together and perfect it. What are the side effects? The woman rubbed the test tube while speaking. If taken by people with severe mental issues, it'll cause mental instability and result in schizophrenia as well as dissociative identity disorder. Understood. It's been chaotic out there recently. You two should stay in the lab until the drug is perfected. The woman's voice quivered excitedly as she said, "I want to see it finished as soon as possible." Understood. Chapter 334. Olivia took it easy for 2 more days. As long as her phone was on, Chris messages would keep coming in, so she turned it off. She lay in the soft and spacious bed as she looked at the horizon. Although the island was a great place, she kept thinking of Ethan's words. She wondered when he would come and take her back to the city. She was eager to go back. She had time to wait, but the same couldn't be said for Jeff. It was almost time for his operation. She called Ethan again. "What's wrong?" Ethan sounded tired. "I want to go back now, Ethan. Give me some time. I'll come get you myself. But, I want to go back now. I need some more time." Ethan couldn't let her know what he was doing. He could only guarantee her safety after he cleared out all the threats in the city. "But if there's something you have to do, you can tell me," Ethan said patiently. Olivia didn't want too many people to know about Jeff's condition, so she didn't tell him. "It's nothing. I'm just worried about my dad. I haven't heard any news about him. Liv, he'll be safe as long as you don't show yourself. Wait for me on the island." Ethan had had his men look into what happened that night. The people who took Jeff seemed to be from Toxic Hive as well. He didn't understand why one organization would send 2 different groups for the same job. The entire matter seemed to be shrouded in mist. The truth was right before his eyes, but Ethan couldn't seem to grasp the whole story. He thought about the cleaner that was responsible for cleaning his office. She cared about him a lot. Once, he was sick and had a sore throat while at work. The cleaner heard him cough and brought him some stew the next day, which she said was good for the throat. Ethan didn't have the heart to turn down her kindness, so he drank it on the spot. The curious thing was that his coughing stopped on the same day. Usually, it would take at least 2 days to recover from that, even with cough medicine. There were plenty of other instances like this. The cleaner cared about Ethan and didn't want to see him hurt. But the care she showed wasn't that of romantic love. It felt more like the love of a family member. That was why Ethan had always been good to her. He never looked down on her even though she was a cleaner. Brent saw Ethan frowning and said, Mr. Miller, it's getting late. Why don't you get some rest? I'll go over these for a little while longer. He thought he had missed something. Mr. Miller, why didn't you agree to Mr. Carlton's terms? They're pretty beneficial to you. Donating bone marrow won't impact Mrs. Miller's health too much. But I'm afraid that she might feel sad, Brent. Ethan pinched his brow and lowered his head. He said softly, I don't want to hurt her anymore. But this is a great chance for you to formally break off the marriage with Miss Carlton. You might never get another chance like this. From Brent's perspective, Chris' offer was nothing but beneficial to Ethan. He didn't expect Ethan to turn it down. He even turned it down at the risk of offending Chris. The thing binding me to Marina has never been the Carltons. It was his promise to Kurt that bound him. He had promised to take care of Marina for him. Mr. Miller, let's stop talking about it. Do something for me. Liv is anxious to come back. I don't have the time to deal with them slowly. Brent said sheepishly, yes, Mr. Miller. Ethan gazed into the night. Steeling his resolve, he promised to compensate Olivia for all that she had lost. At the hospital, a conversation was taking place. Mrs. Carlton isn't in great shape, Mr. Carlton. Her condition has been deteriorating very quickly. We need to get that bone marrow as soon as possible. I understand. Chris left the doctor's office with a heavy heart. He didn't expect Ethan to be so heartless. He had humbled himself so much and promised many gifts. Yet Ethan refused to budge. At this rate, Chloe was going to die. He headed back to Chloe's ward in despair. Suddenly, a person with an anxious expression ran into him. The person was gone before he could react. He noticed that a card had been inserted into the pocket on his chest. He looked at the card and saw a map on it. An island was highlighted with a red pen. Chapter 335. Brent found it strange that Chris hadn't come looking for Ethan in the past few days. Did Mr. Carlton give up? He'll never give up until the last moment. He knows I won't budge. He's probably thinking of other ways. Ethan was sure no one could locate Olivia if he didn't go to the island. She must be safe. Brent handed him a bulletproof vest and said, Mr. Miller, you should wear it just to be safe. The knife wound on your chest hasn't completely healed yet. Okay. Ethan looked at the cloudy sky. The sunlight was completely blocked out. The world looked dark and gloomy. Brent, who was driving, said irritably, it's so stuffy. It's probably going to rain soon. Rain just dampens the mood. It's good to have some rain. It'll cleanse the filth from this city. Ethan couldn't help but call Olivia when he thought about what he was about to do. It was how things used to be. Her voice would calm him down. Olivia had just finished feeding the ducks. She had been chased around the co-op by a goose 3 times. She picked up Ethan's call while panting. Hello. What happened? Why are you out of breath? A goose almost pecked me. I'm tired. Olivia sat under a tree, panting heavily. A professional cameraman on the island would take pictures of her daily and send them to Ethan. A smile appeared when he pictured Olivia being chased by a goose. Even his voice became gentler. Remember to rest well. Nurse your body back to health. What happened to you, Ethan? Olivia recalled that he would ridicule her whenever she told him she wasn't feeling well. Liv, we can still have kids in the future. Ethan hung up. Olivia fanned at her reddened cheeks with her hands. She figured that Ethan must have gone mad after hearing what he said. Did he think they could still get back together? Olivia watched as the sun set on the horizon. Another day was nearing its end. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a helicopter approaching. Olivia thought Ethan must be out of his mind to call her right before he arrived. The helicopter landed at the helipad near her. She began to walk toward the helicopter. She thought his conscience had kicked in and he finally decided to take her away. Although she despised him, she would put up with him if it would get her back to Aldenvine. The cabin door opened as the rotors blew dust into the air. Amidst the intense gust, Olivia's expression changed when she saw the person who came out of the helicopter. It wasn't Ethan. It was Chris. Mr. Carlton. Olivia greeted him with a stiff expression. Chris flew over as soon as he could. He looked fatigued. We meet again, Olivia. I told you there were some things I had to tell you in person. Olivia said coldly, Did Ethan send you? Chris thought about the card. The island was in such a desolate place that no one but Ethan could have told him about the location, or so he thought. He said, yes, we made a deal. If you agree to donate your bone marrow, I'll allow him to cancel his engagement with Marina. I know you're the woman he loves. He then added politely, Olivia, I also want to make a deal with you. Help me save your mother and I'll agree to let you and Ethan be together. Marina will never bother you guys again. What do you think about that? Olivia thought Ethan was despicable for doing this. He handed her over for his selfish desires. Olivia said with rage, what gave him the right to decide my fate? She thought Ethan was as cocky as ever. Chris saw that Olivia had gotten emotional, but he still wanted to talk to her peacefully. Don't be mad, Olivia. I just have something to tell you. Olivia didn't want to waste another second. So, she ran. Chris sighed and said, Olivia, why must it be like this? I don't want to hurt you. He raised his hand, and several tall and well-built men went after her. Chapter 336. Reality proved that a former long-distance running champion was no match for well-trained military men. In less than 50 meters, Olivia was subdued by one of Chris' men. She was pinned to the ground in a neck hold with her face against the scorching sand. Chris quickly said, don't hurt her. She's a guest. Olivia was captured, and there was some sand on her right cheek. She spat some sand out of her mouth before saying, so this is how you treat guests. Chris took out a handkerchief and cleaned her face himself. Sorry, Olivia. Olivia was put on the helicopter just like that. Chris smiled bitterly when he met her eyes, which were filled with hatred. Olivia, you're Chloe's only child. I want to take care of you. It's not my wish for things to turn out like this. I hope you can understand. I can't, nor do I want to. Olivia looked outside the window. The beautiful island was getting farther and farther from her like it was all a dream. The person who had sworn to protect her had given her up again. I don't understand. Donating your bone marrow won't affect your health. Why are you so unwilling to help your mother? You're not me. You don't know the pain I've been through. The sad thing was, she didn't used to think what Chloe had put her through was pain. She had tried to find excuses for Chloe's actions repeatedly. Our relationship was done the moment she chose for Marina to live and for me to die. Like I said, I've already paid her back with my life. Chris tried to convince Olivia again but to no avail. Olivia didn't respond and treated him like he was invisible. As the sun set, Olivia felt like there was only the sky and the ocean in the world. There wasn't a glimmer of light in the skies, and the ocean looked chilling. It was like a monster hiding in the dark, and it would consume her the next second. She felt more uneasy the closer they got to Aldenvine. The weather near Aldenvine was cloudy, unlike the weather back on the island. The rain had started to fall. It was another rainy day. Although she knew there were a lot of thunderstorms in the spring, Olivia still hated the rain. Chris, who was leaning back on the chair, had fallen asleep. He probably felt relaxed because he had Olivia with him. When he felt some light coming from outside, he opened his eyes to look. Olivia, we're back. Chris didn't bring Olivia to the hospital because she refused to cooperate. He brought her to a villa in the suburbs. She was dragged off the helicopter even though Chris told his men to be gentle. The bodyguards feared that she would run, so they kept a tight grip on her hands. You can't escape, Olivia. But don't be afraid. The harvesting of the bone marrow will only hurt a little. It'll pass soon. Let me go. The icy raindrops pelted down on Olivia, and the heavy rain drowned out her voice. No matter how she struggled, she couldn't change the situation. She walked through the muddy ground with her eyes filled with resentment toward Ethan. How could he disregard her wishes and make a deal with Chris like this? Why would he ever think she would still be waiting for him like she used to? And he thought that they would still have a child together. It was truly laughable. Olivia was placed on an operating table. A doctor in a white coat appeared in her sight shortly after. As she struggled and squirmed, the doctor said, Mr. Carlton, I can't harvest her bone marrow if she moves around like this. Chris' patience was growing thin. Make her settle down. Yes, Mr. Carlton. The woman took a syringe out of her medical kit. The sharp needle glistened in the light. Olivia panicked. No, don't do it. She couldn't move because some people were holding her limbs in place. Olivia could only watch as the woman got closer to her. The woman whispered, "We meet again." Olivia's eyes widened. She had a strong feeling that the woman was the one who kidnapped her. She looked at the woman who was wearing a white coat and a face mask. Only her eyes were visible. Olivia felt a sting. Then she lost consciousness. The darkness consumed her. Chapter 337. After she extracted Olivia's bone marrow, the woman handed over the test tube to Chris and said, "Mr. Carlton, you can get someone to get this analyzed to see if it's compatible." Chris sighed in relief as a glimmer of hope returned to his eyes. "Thanks for your hard work." He handed the test tube to one of his bodyguards and said, "Get someone to analyze this right now. Let me know as soon as the results are out." "Yes, sir. And for the rest of you, guard Olivia well. Don't let anything happen to her." "Understood, sir." Chris finished giving out orders and turned to look at the doctor. "Dr. Cohen, if the bone marrow is compatible, then the operation." "Don't worry, Mr. Carlton. Leave it to me. Mrs. Carlton can't afford to wait any longer. I'll perform some preoperative examination on this lady so that we can operate as soon as possible." "All right. Thanks, Dr. Cohen. Don't mention it. Can you get these bodyguards to leave the room for a bit?" Chris glanced at Olivia, who was unconscious. He figured she wouldn't be able to escape, so he said readily, "Sure." Only the doctor and her assistant, Jennifer, were left in the room. She looked at Jennifer and said, "Keep an eye on things outside." "Okay." She then injected Olivia with some other drug. Olivia began to regain consciousness slowly. As her vision came into focus, she saw a white flash. She had just woken up, and her head was fuzzy from the drug. She was dazed for a few seconds before she returned to her senses and yelled angrily while struggling, "It's you." Olivia realized her limbs were bound with metal chains. She glared at the woman angrily. She didn't expect to fall right back into the palm of her hand after spending so much time in hiding. "Who are you, really? What grudge do you have against me? Why do you want to kill me so badly? You even dragged innocent people into this." The woman said coldly, "Your entire existence is a mistake." The woman didn't use a voice changer this time. She just spoke in a lower register. But the joy in her voice was still undeniable. "Don't blame me, but you have to die." She ran her hand past Olivia's cheek. "Look at this beautiful face. Even Marina can't hold a candle to you. Is this face the reason he loves you so much?" Olivia felt a cool sensation on her face. She looked and saw a blade held between the woman's fingers. She felt a chill down her spine. "What do you want?" "I want to," the woman whispered ominously with a smile, "ruin your face. I wonder if he'll be sad to see that." A cool breeze blew in from a window that wasn't shut properly. Its chilling touch caused Olivia to get goosebumps on her exposed skin. But Olivia didn't feel fear. She looked directly into the woman's eyes and asked expressionlessly, "You're behind everything that has happened to my family, right?" "That's right. You're the one who killed Belle too. To be precise, you're the one who did it. You made her emotional. I just gave her a little push. She should be grateful to me." Olivia clenched her fists when she heard that. This woman was rotten to the core. "Are you the one who swapped out my medical examination report?" "Yes. Why? Isn't it obvious? Someone like you is not worthy of his love. I want to see him push you into hell from heaven with my own eyes." "So you killed Leia for this? To use her death to jumpstart your plan? She was innocent. What gives you the right to rule over the life and death of others?" The woman smirked. "You talk too much. Never mind, I've decided to change my plan." She put away the blade and took out another syringe. "Olivia, this is a newly developed poison. A few drops will be lethal enough to kill you. Don't worry, your death won't be too painful. You'll be dead in under 30 seconds. She looked at Olivia condescendingly. She then placed her thumb on the plunger of the syringe. She said with a cold expression, "I've grown tired of this game. Let's end it." Chapter 338. The woman placed a wet cloth over Olivia's mouth to stop her from screaming. Olivia struggled hard, shaking her limbs and twisting her body. Her movements caused the chains to make rattling sounds. Olivia didn't want to die. She had a lot of things she needed to do, but her struggles were futile. Even though her wrists and ankles were scraped raw, she couldn't break free from the metal chains. Olivia, it's your biggest mistake to have ever met him. Olivia shook her head with all her might. She could only make muffled sounds with her mouth. It won't hurt. It'll all be over soon. A tear rolled down from the corner of Olivia's eye, but the woman ignored it. Olivia could only watch as the syringe got closer and closer to her. It was almost touching her skin. Suddenly, the woman's phone rang. She wanted to ignore it, but the ringtone annoyed her. "What do you want?" "I'm busy," the woman said furiously. Her expression soon changed. The needle that was about to penetrate Olivia's skin stopped in place. "What? How did they find out?" "Retreat. Don't confront them head-on." She hung up the phone and repositioned the needle while looking at Olivia coldly. Hatred for Olivia filled her eyes. So long. Olivia could feel the needle tip on her skin, which was about to pierce through. However, the door was kicked open abruptly, and the woman's assistant appeared with a panicked look. "Bad news. The base sustained heavy losses. I heard that Leo has gone out to settle the score with him." "You know him. He'll never let such a good chance slip by him. He came in person." "That's right. He's the one leading the charge." "Damn it," the woman cursed. She no longer had the time to pay Olivia any attention. She turned and left in haste. Olivia was so scared that she was sweating all over. A cold breeze blew on her, making her shiver. She didn't feel any relief that her life was saved. She was thinking about the name Jennifer brought up. Leo. Was that the person who could operate on her father? Colin had told him that Leo had already set out to the island. Why was he still in Aldenvine? But if he was in Aldenvine, why couldn't Ethan find him? Questions filled Olivia's head as she gazed at the heavy rain outside. She thought that the woman's eyes looked familiar. Some things began to take root in her heart. A lot of details that she previously missed began to make sense. She was getting close to the truth. So, was Ethan the person who was attacking Toxic Hive's base? Why would the woman have such a huge reaction if it wasn't him? She even gave up on killing her at the very last moment. Ethan led the offense personally. Olivia thought about the call she had with him on the island. He told her to wait for a few days and that he would bring her back himself. She realized he was planning to get rid of Toxic Hive to prepare for her return. Then why would he reveal her whereabouts? Olivia then realized that Toxic Hive must have uncovered her location and made it known to Chris. What about Ethan? He was in the middle of a dangerous situation. Was he okay? A lightning bolt streaked across the sky, and a thunderous clap could be heard. Olivia screamed at the top of her lungs, "Someone, help!" The bodyguards heard her and immediately rushed in. "Let me go. Please settle down, Miss Fordham. We don't want to hurt you. Save some energy and cooperate with us. It'll be better for everyone involved." "I want to see Chris Carlton," Olivia said. Chris came in shortly. He saw Olivia with tears all over her face and asked, "What happened to you, Olivia? Did the procedure hurt?" He noticed the scrapes on Olivia's wrists and ankles. Frowning, he said, "I told you to take good care of her. How did this happen to her?" Olivia said with a sob, "Mr. Carlton, I agreed to donate my bone marrow. Please help me. Dear child, what's wrong? Just tell me. I'll do whatever I can to help. Go save Ethan. He's in danger." Chapter 339. This area in the suburbs outside the city had been turned into a natural reserve some years ago. All of the inhabitants were moved a long time ago, so it became deserted over the years. Some old abandoned buildings could be seen through the rain. There were also some crows on old electric poles. Some noises could be heard amongst the thunder. It was like someone was setting off fireworks in the area. The noises were deafening. Continuous gunshots followed the noises. The sound of gunfire disrupted the peace of the woods. The underground base was thrown into chaos, and the speakers were blaring, "Warning, danger." On repeat. Some giant screens revealed the situation outside. The base had been surrounded without their knowledge. Some drones were laying waste to the cameras outside. Static began to show up on the screens. All the doctors in the labs were alerted. They came out and began pacing, saying, "What's wrong? What's happening?" Most of the people in the base were bookworms who were obsessed with their research. They couldn't hold their own in a fight. They had no life skills other than doing research. Amidst the chaos, a cold voice rang out. "Come with me. Evacuate from the secret passage." Colin had a stormy expression. "They didn't attack out of nowhere. This is a planned assault. They might be waiting for us at the end of the passage. Who's able to evade all of our security cameras and find our location?" Colin finally realized that he had provoked a madman. His area of activity had long been under Ethan's watchful eye, but he thought he had fooled Ethan. He was proud of it too. But his actions had brought disaster to the organization's doorstep. "It's too late for words now. I'll lead a team to attract their attention. The rest of you escape while I keep them occupied." "Leo." Colin stopped in his tracks. His face was calm under the mask, but his voice was laced with bloodlust. "I don't have to be responsible for the murders I commit with this identity, right? There's no need for that. We don't need to confront them. Take the drug and leave with the others." "I'm sorry, boss, but I'll have to defy you on this." Colin had spent enough time as a goody two-shoes. He didn't have to do that today. There would be no one to take Olivia from him after Ethan was dead. He deserved to die anyway. The quiet forest was in flames. The drones would fly over and open fire when they detected human activity. Some people didn't even get the chance to get to cover. They died as soon as they emerged from the base. The members of Toxic Hive were researchers. Even though some mercenaries were in the base, they were heavily outmanned and outgunned by the special forces that came prepared. They were already surrounded. Several secret passages were made when the base was first built. Colin gave up the chance to escape. He knew that this was the best shot he had at killing Ethan. He had figured out Ethan's approximate location before the cameras were destroyed. He got to the surface from another tunnel. It was the closest one to Ethan. It was the most dangerous place and the safest one at the same time. Everyone had their focus on the area that was being bombarded. The sound of explosives drowned out everything else. Someone grabbed Colin before he could jump out. "Leo, it's dangerous. Get out of here. I need to kill him. Give me 10 seconds. He could recognize Ethan's back even amongst the group of people. Some mechanical animals carrying explosives appeared in the woods. They would explode immediately upon contact. The explosions kept going off. Brent said to Ethan, "It's dangerous here. Let's retreat." The bombs would not discriminate against their targets. Ethan couldn't afford to stay here any longer. Ethan and company quickly retreated, leaving the professionals to do their jobs defusing the bombs. The group of people around Ethan was smaller. It was the best chance to take him out. As everyone was hiding, a bullet went straight for Ethan's heart. He fell to the ground on the spot. Colin smiled when he saw Ethan collapse. He thought he had killed the man who was haunting Olivia. Chapter 340. Dr. Cohen was trying to reach the area with explosions. She didn't leave even though she received the message to evacuate. Grabbing her hand, Jennifer said, "You should leave. It's dangerous to keep going." "I can't. He came in person. I'm worried. Leo hates him and will definitely take the chance to ambush him." Her palms were sweaty, and her body was shaking. But when she rushed to the scene, she saw Ethan get shot and fall to the ground. "No," she shrieked. Jennifer grabbed her hand, wanting to take her away. "Don't go over there. We have to evacuate." But the woman had already lost it. She ran toward Ethan's direction, paying no mind to the gunfire or the explosions. All she had her eyes on was the man on the ground. She had finally come to his side after traveling great distances. She was a clean freak, but she kneeled on the muddy ground. Her tears, mixed with the rain, fell on Ethan's face. She said in a shaky voice, "No, you can't die. I won't let you." She was about to check on Ethan's injury, but Ethan grabbed her wrist. Dr. Cohen was stunned. Opening his eyes, Ethan said, "I've finally caught you." Dr. Cohen looked at Ethan's body and realized his chest wasn't bleeding. Her mind began to clear up. She realized that Ethan's goal wasn't the base. He just wanted to lure her out. She finally understood why he would reveal his face and show up at this place by himself. He was making a bet with his own life. He was betting that she would show up. Dr. Cohen was furious. She punched him in the chest and confirmed that he was wearing a bulletproof vest. She couldn't help but get angry. Are you insane? You'd be dead if the bullet was aimed at your head instead. Ethan was shocked. The voice was different from the cleaner's usual voice. It was the voice of a young woman. Who are you? He reached for Dr. Cohen's face mask. Just then, a loud boom sounded. A bomb fell near Ethan, splashing mud all over them. The explosion made him loosen his grip subconsciously to protect himself. Dr. Cohen took this chance to run away. A group of people was closing in from all directions. Dr. Cohen managed to get into a car that came to get her. The men began to shoot at the car. Its rear windshield was shot to pieces, but the car zoomed away. A few cars went to chase after it. Kelvin pulled a dumbstruck Ethan back into the car. Ethan looked like his soul had left his body. He had a lost expression, and his eyes were out of focus. What's wrong, Mr. Miller? Kelvin shook Ethan as he asked. He was acting too weird. He could have grabbed hold of Dr. Cohen but let her go without much effort. Ethan snapped back to reality and got into the driver's seat. Tell Brent to continue with the attack. Toxic Hive must be eliminated. What about you? Where are you going? I need to confirm something. Ethan stepped on the gas and drove off at a dangerously high speed. His attitude scared Kelvin. It seemed like he had experienced an immense shock. Mr. Miller, did you see what she looked like? Who is she? Why does she care about you so much even though she's a member of Toxic Hive? Before he could ask more question, Kelvin received a call from Chris. Don't worry, Mr. Carlton. Mr. Miller is fine. He's safe right now. What? Mrs. Miller is with you.